6:38, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Appreciate you listening. Johnny, I hate to do this on the air. Are your phones all messed up? So I was getting ready to go to Mtthew Hurtt, and my phone bank just completely, disappeared.
Well, that's not good.
Are you able to put him on the air?
I think I am.
All right, hold on.
Hang on. There you go.
Mtthew Hurtt.
Help, I'm trapped in the phone bank.
Let me tell you something. Our phone bank is not someplace you want to be. Anyway.
It's overdrawn.
Yes, it is. Anyway, Mtthew Hurtt, our grassroots political analyst. Hello, Mtthew. How are you?
It has been a wild weekend, and we are one day from Election Day. So I'm pretty excited, heavily caffeinated, and there is no sleep until Wednesday.
Okay, so I need your very astute, Johnny, is my audio up? I need your very astute political analysis. This is something that Joe Biden said apparently over the weekend.
But I'm serious. These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
Mtthew?
Well, this seems like a little bit of locker room talk from Joe Biden in the last days of this election.
Why is Joe Biden instigating violence? It's this violent political rhetoric that is ruining America.
It's either violence or sexual harassment in the workplace. I'm not sure which, but, he's got a 40-year track record of saying the wildest things. This is the wildest election cycle, and it's just one more reason to reject Kamala Harris tomorrow.
Yeah, it was interesting. If you look at the video, and that Biden was somewhere, and when he says that, when he says that Republicans are...
But I'm serious. These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
It just doesn't make any sense. But his teeth are gritted, and his hands are in fists. And it's kind of bizarre, especially... of course, after the garbage comment.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
And so is it time? I mean, look, we only got we got today and tomorrow, right? So there's only a couple of days left. But is it bizarre that they keep putting Joe Biden out there?
It is a little strange. The only thing more cringy than this Joe Biden comment was Kamala Harris and Tim Kaine's appearance on Saturday Night Live over the weekend. So it just seems like an incongruent cultural fit that they're trying to make this square peg go into a round hole. No pun intended in this instance. And it's just pretty wild what we see coming out of the White House and out of the Harris campaign.
What do you make of, just from a strategic standpoint? I tend to overthink things. I know that isn't always evident, but when you've got Kamala Harris heading to, I think it was Michigan, she gets a last minute call to be on Saturday Night Live, and the plane turns around. So if I'm thinking about this in a political way, I'm wondering if this is an indication that not all is well with the internal polling, and they're trying to get Kamala some last-minute love.
I think that the audience for Saturday Night Live is East Coast elites. It was strange to me, and I woke up at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. I didn't catch Saturday Night Live when it was live, but the first thought I had was she could divert her campaign plane to New York City, but she couldn't make 3 hours for a Joe Rogan interview in Austin, which arguably is more culturally relevant for a demographic that she is losing. So quite a surprise. It was not funny. I followed the comments, the replies to Saturday Night Live and to the local Democrats in Arlington who touted it. And these people are just humorless. And they wouldn't know a good joke if it smacked them on the ass. I'm sorry. But this is kind of a wild situation we're in. But it is up to people on the ground to make sure that they get out and vote and get their friends to vote. This is going to be a close election in every single state.
6:43 on Nashville's Morning News, and Mtthew Hurtt is joining us, our grassroots political analyst.
It's called suppression. They suppress, and it actually should be illegal because it's, in many ways, it's worse than the written word, which these guys do quite well, actually.
So talking about the media and suppression polls, which is what a lot of people are calling this Des Moines, Iowa poll from the Des Moines Register, where suddenly out of nowhere, they're saying that Kamala Harris is 3 percentage points above Donald Trump in a state where Donald Trump has been roundly beating Kamala Harris, and he's taken twice Iowa, and they're completely ignoring, the media is completely ignoring the Emerson poll that also came out over the weekend that shows that Donald Trump is 10 points ahead of Kamala Harris. What do you think of this? Just again, out of nowhere, this Des Moines, Iowa, this Des Moines Register poll that comes out and shows that Harris randomly is ahead of Donald Trump.
You know, I'm puzzled by Ann Seltzer and this poll. She's normally a very good pollster, but what we see in the crosstabs is basically a 25-point shift among voters 65 and older in Iowa, and that's just not going to happen. And so you have to wonder, did she take a bag of cash from the Harris campaign? My friends who are numbers crunchers, I'm more of a vibe check guy, but my friends who run these numbers all the time were absolutely flabbergasted because Ann Seltzer is actually a fairly respected Democratic pollster, and it seems like she sold it all away this weekend to salvage the Harris campaign exactly for the Sunday show talking points and exactly for the headlines that you've been talking about all morning.
See, that's exactly what I said in the 5 o'clock hour, is this gave Kirsten Welker and George Stephanopoulos and all of these other weekend network news anchors, the talking heads, the ability to focus on this poll as opposed to all of the bizarre things that have been happening out on the campaign trail. Of course, the Joe Biden garbage comment. Now we've got the Biden comment about smacking Republicans in the backside. You have Mark Cuban. And what Mark Cuban said last week, I don't think you and I we may have spoken about this, but where he says that Donald Trump has never, ever been surrounded by strong, intelligent women. And it just seems like, and Barack Obama was out on the campaign trail over the weekend also lying, and perhaps I'll get to that too. But it just seems like this is a campaign, Kamala Harris, they're willing to say and do anything to get her elected. And a lot of this stuff seems to be backfiring.
Yeah, this is a flailing campaign of fear and division, whether it's African-American voters in Philadelphia or female voters in the suburbs. We saw in Alexandria over the weekend a white woman, what we call an affluent white female liberal, attack a black Republican at a coffee shop. This is a flailing campaign of desperation and division, and I think the voters are seeing through it, and people are waking up, and they've said, enough of this garbage. We're not going to take it anymore, and we're going to vote for Donald Trump and the Republican candidates.
I'll tell you, part of what is frustrating to me is you have all of these conflicting stories. You've got, I've got one headline that said Kamala Harris has a female problem. You have another story that literally says Kamala Harris is really strong with the female electorate. Obviously, the bottom line here is that the ultimate poll is going to be cast tomorrow. It is Election Day. What did you make of this story from Town Hall? I mentioned it just very briefly a few minutes ago, where members of our military have not been able to get the absentee ballots that they need because apparently we're out. I mean, that sounds to me like that's a voter suppression, which is what we're always accused of. Republicans are always accused of. This comes from the Pentagon, where they didn't have enough absentee ballots for members of the military actively serving overseas.
So there are two elements here. There are state-level absentee ballots, which people can request, and then there is some kind of balloting process handled by Department of Defense that isn't actually a ballot. It is essentially just a blank piece of paper. There was another radio host talking about this over the weekend with Florida Congressman Brian Mast, who has served in the military, and it is certainly concerning that anybody would be disenfranchised who is lawfully able to vote in this election. And you think primarily about the young men and women who are at basic training. They're far away from home. They vanish from social media and television and all that for 6-8 weeks. And don't have the ability to cast a ballot from their hometown. These are serious questions, and it is certainly something that I think Congress is going to take a look at, and that regardless of party affiliation of these young servicemen and women and those who are serving abroad should have the ability to have a say in their government. And we have to make sure that we've closed that loophole to ensure that it is as easy as possible for those young men and women who are in service, who are registered to vote, to cast their ballot.
There's a guy out there named Alex Castellanos, and he is somebody like you, very, politically savvy and so forth. And he said something over the weekend on a Fox News panel that I thought was very interesting.
In the bottom of that poll, it says, across these final polls, white Democrats were 16% likelier to respond than white Republicans. That's a larger disparity than our earlier polls this year, and it's not much better than our final polls in 2020. Even with the pandemic over, it raises the possibility that the polls could underestimate Mr. Trump yet again. This is at the bottom of the poll in the little fine print, and it kind of encapsulates the whole thing that we're looking at here, right?
Yeah, that is Brett Baer talking to not only Karl Rove, but this guy Castellanos and Mark Penn. And they all agree that we may, yet again, I can't believe we're talking about this, but we may be talking again about this notion of closeted Donald Trump supporters. In your travels, are you seeing that?
I think we see that. There are people who are just not comfortable expressing their view in support of Donald Trump. I see it a lot in Northern Virginia, of course, where the overwhelming majority of people are progressives or leftists. And so we're going to see a little bit of that. But the other layer there is that Republicans aren't responding to the polls.
Right.
And the people who I've spoken with who've gotten calls from polling firms have either said they don't respond or they outright lie. And I don't think that that's a significant amount of the polling data, but it's certainly we're in a situation where these polls could very well underestimate Donald Trump come tomorrow.
All right, so I've got about 30 seconds left. Talk about what we're seeing in all the latest polling outside of that Des Moines, Iowa poll from the Register. But just talk about, generally speaking, I'm still seeing Trump ahead in a lot of these battleground states. But it does look like the Real Clear Politics polling, it is getting tighter in Pennsylvania.
Donald Trump is peaked as we head into Election Day. These polls don't vote, the voters do. And so if you're in Pennsylvania, if you've got family in Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin or Georgia or North Carolina or Arizona or Nevada, you need to make sure that everyone gets out to vote. And I want to personally thank my dad on the air out in Murfreesboro who cast his absentee ballot a couple of weeks ago.
There you go, Dad. Well done. You feeling pretty good today, Mtthew, about tomorrow?
I feel great, but that's probably the coffee. What I'll say is we've got to get folks out to vote. Everyone has to get out and cast a ballot who is legally able to vote vote for our Republican candidates, because these polls don't manifest themselves on Election Day. We've got to get out and vote.